Hey, this is Robert Thibodeau, Robert of Mayflower Bookshop, mayflowerbookshop.com. And I'm here to talk about the astrology of October going into November, December. And just very briefly, we see in October the major things that are happening in October. October 8th, Mars square Pluto. And October 10th, Venus opposing Saturn. So we can feel these already. The moon squared Mars on Saturday, the 7th. And you can see the war, the warring peoples around the world, people shooting bombs at each other and shooting harsh words at each other. And that has to do with Mars squared Pluto. Mars square Pluto is cleaning your house, restructuring, Mars square Pluto is to renew and regenerate or to degenerate. Mars square Pluto is like people get caught up in psychology too much. And Pluto is in Capricorn, at the end of Capricorn. So people who are born in the latter part of Capricorn, Libra, Aries, Cancer, that they're like getting hit the hardest, And Mars square Pluto is like either feeling angry or somebody's angry at you or you're hurt. And it's a need for surrendering to higher truth and eating healing foods. I mean, you can see that Venus opposing Saturn that we're approaching is clearly colder weather. Too hot in some areas, too cold in others. Mars, the idea of astrology is to try to find the positive side and not get caught in the negative side. So the negative side would be not feeling loved and appreciated enough. The positive side was loving anyway and helping people less fortunate than yourself and giving good counsel and trying to see the good, true, and beautiful in another person, trying to concentrate on virtues and what could be done, trying to extend ourselves etherically to helping people to grow in new ways and to envision and be uplifted and to try to be still about our fear and desire so that we could see a bigger soul that's operative that holds all of us, and to try to imagine an ego or I am, an individuality that goes from lifetime to lifetime on a pilgrimage to collect, like honeybees going to flowers, that we collect experiences and we get the essence or nectar of wisdom and insight and a loving kindness out of the compassion for how hard we all work and struggle for love and appreciation. And I think when you see Pluto going direct in latter Capricorn at 9:10 p.m. on the 10th, on a Tuesday of October, we're really looking at the last week or two and the coming couple weeks of this shift of Pluto return in the United States chart and this whole thing with the United States trying to heal its wounds, to fix its mistakes, to have a social economic system of justice, to consider free education for the bottom up, and a renewed wisdom, compassion for the top down, to reintroduce gardening, midwifing of souls, a midwifing of talents in each other. Pluto is if you don't have compassion and selflessness, a selfless student learning, if you don't have that emptiness open to learn, a compassion for ourselves and others that we don't know what would help us, so we have to learn. And until we know to be still and listen with our deeper heart. Pluto's very demanding. Otherwise, Pluto's plutocrats and selfishness and greed and people who rule by money, power, and authority and corporatocracy and secret manipulative clubs. Whereas in the long run, we need to have a lot of compassion for these people that wrong the earth because they're making a lot of bad karma for themselves and each other. And so the Mars square Pluto is reviewing who we are and how could we become whole. How can we be quiet enough to overcome our lower astral body and to invoke angelic virtues within ourselves and others? And so on a bottom line, Mars square Pluto on the 8th of October is getting rid of things that we don't need anymore, selling them, giving them away, cleaning, taking the garbage out, regenerating or degenerating. People who have a lot of bad habits. I mean, when you have Mars square Pluto and Venus opposing Saturn, I mean, that's like where people feel ill in their soul. Like the ego is sick. The ego is not identified with the Buddha or the Christos with wisdom and love. The spirit soul is overburdened by the physical and the etheric rhythms. So here's a chance to love people even though we don't like them. A chance to have compassion and some kind of wisdom that would help. Otherwise, to be quiet and to be to ourselves and wait. And when Pluto goes direct, it's going to go into Aquarius again. And I believe Pluto will go retrograde back in Capricorn very shortly again in the future. So we have a couple years. We have till 24, 25, maybe even 26 for a healing of the planet and a restructuring of our personal lives to be more tuned and tuned into a greater sense of identity, a sense of belonging to each other, of being brother and sister to all that lives. Okay, so basically, to be dumb simple, the next few days are tough, and we want to have a patient compassion. And we'd be nice to learn how to love ourselves. Yoga, meditation, eating healthy grains and greens I look to a lot. And sit back and watch the changes in the world and ponder what we could possibly learn that would be of help. Often weather goes to extremes. People go to extremes. Mars trine Saturn may help on the 13th of October for a solid, like Thursday and Friday, looking for practical long-term solutions rather than just quick fixes. And the solar eclipse at 21 Libra happens on the new moon on October 14th at 1:55 p.m. The solar eclipse in Libra seeks spiritual relationships and healthy relationships that will bring balance to our life. The sun moon are very close to conjuncting the south node. There's an excitement in the air on the 14th and for the next couple weeks to find healing relationships that can be co-creative and co-equal to our own subjectivity and objectivity. We're looking for people that will help bring a greater balance to our higher self and a healing to our lower self. And the Venus still opposing Saturn, that Venus opposing Saturn is influencing weeks. We may not feel loved enough, but we should love anyway and have compassion for others who even do us harm. We may need to try to fix things and state our experience and share our experience in truth or fact. But we also want to have compassion for those people who don't know better, that want to hurt other people. Revenge is mine, saith the Lord, is in every Bible. God has the last judgment because God is waiting for it all to end totally to decide what happened. Now, I may not be making sense to you, but if we want to keep it simple, solar eclipses, especially for the cardinal signs of Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, what will you sacrifice and surrender and give up to make things better? Can we give up our worst habit and offer it on the altar of our heart to awaken a higher fire of illumination and truth? That's what's up. And the sun and moon is pretty close to squaring Pluto. Again, this is learning to not put ourselves or others down, but trying to learn what could we learn that would help heal and raise us to a higher consciousness of peacemaking. Because what's happening is that everyone has an opinion of what's wrong with the world, but after we spend a lot of time debating and arguing, nobody's changed their opinion one bit. So we may need to be better emulation models. We have to think of what would be good for the long term. The moon conjunct Mars, Sunday morning on the 15th. We have to stop being critical in a destructive way. How can we be constructively critical? And how can we be constructive in our actions to help raise consciousness? On the 20th of October, Mercury squares Pluto. Again, with the Sun conjunct Mercury, that 18th, 19th, 20th, we should be able to bring light to what is positive that we can do. And I think the Mercury square Pluto on the 20th at 8:51 p.m. and the Sun square Pluto on the 21st on Sun square Pluto. I think what we're going to see there is what is difficult to fix and we're going to have to let go of. Again, Pluto aspects are a deep humility and selflessness, a stillness that's still learning until we can make things better, that we're not satisfied with our judgment, that we give up our lower judgments and our criticalness because it's impotent and doesn't help anyone. And so how can we do that? I think this is a big crisis in the world, is how can we help others to help themselves? Otherwise, how can we stay in the learning and student to divinity, a student to learning to the divine and the eternal in the passing moment? Sun square Pluto is pretty heavy-duty family stuff and being stuck with things that are difficult and having tough decisions to make. And when we get to the 22nd and the 23rd of October, when the Sun goes into Scorpio, Venus trines Jupiter and Mercury trines Saturn. You'd think that loving kindness and solutions would make themselves known after some kind of crisis. There are significant fallings, like these eclipses are going to be people losing their power and taking a fall, but other people are going to rise who have some kind of virtuous empowerment to show the way to a better way of living. You obviously, in geopolitical hotspots, are going to be intense. Extremes in the weather, whether it's volcanoes or storms or excessive heat or cold. There's some pretty wild times here, and threats, more threats of fighting and war, with those Pluto aspects. And the eclipse is a danger of being eclipsed or cut out. Versus the full moon eclipse on the 28th is of a freedom from the negativity and some kind of new solutions presenting themselves, which may present themselves, by the way, on the 22nd, if not before. But I'm saying that the tough aspects of the 20th, 21st, and around the solar eclipse, and the October 8th and 9th, those are tough times, and 10th. Those are tough times. But the good times are the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, Sun trine Saturn. Solid solutions that are available if we'll do it. Practical, grounded. And yet incorporate a spirituality. When Mars opposes Jupiter on the lunar eclipse on the 28th, again, the lunar eclipse is Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. How can we be bigger and share ourselves in a way that will help people to help themselves? And with Neptune on the ascending sign of the Washington, D.C. chart, like when we have... I'm just thinking about this. I think that really good things are changing now to make it a success story by spring of 2024. Maybe we'll get lucky between December and January, 23 going into 24, but certainly a lot of the tough changes now are to bring more lasting results, positive and peace in the springtime. When we get to the eclipse, we might have a glimpse of this, the lunar eclipse, on October 28th, when Mars opposes Jupiter and Mercury opposes Jupiter. And Neptune is conjunct the Washington, D.C. chart. So that's crazy for false idealisms, and Venus opposing Neptune. So I think people look for escapism and kind of a love that is a temporary release. And we need to look for a love that is a more permanent, creative. We need a higher yoga union with the higher self. And again, on the 28th and 29th, with the Mercury conjunct Mars, and then on the 31st of October on Halloween with Venus trine Uranus. Halloween's probably going to be pretty fun. Venus trine Uranus, a lot of creative, colorful, but also love, cheeriness. And November 3rd, we get to the Sun opposing Jupiter and Venus opposing Neptune. I mean, I think there's some real things that take place at the end of October going into November is who do you love, and what love works? Who loves you in the long run? Who loves you for multiple lifetimes? Who wants to keep trying to work things out? And who's judgmental at dead ends that don't work? A lot of novel insights take place as Saturn goes direct on the 4th. Pisces, Virgo, Sag, Gemini. There's you need to wake up and do things that work and learn new things and let go of the past and let go of false futures that never come. Got that? That's what we're being called to do at the end of the month going into next month, is to let go of false futures and not be critical where it's impotent and doesn't help anybody, and to not have false interpretations of the past that don't give us wisdom, and to have a future that we're not really loving into. There is no security outside of growing a little bit every day and being a little more enlightened. So when Venus trines Pluto on November 5th and 6th, and Mercury trines Neptune, there's a sense of trying to create peace and negotiation that will work into the future. Very tough aspects happen November 10th and 11th. Mercury square Saturn, Mars opposed Uranus. There's a lack of patience, endurance, persistence. Anger is the worst non-virtue. It burns up the good karma. Anger is when we force people to see things rather than that we're able to educate them or enlighten them or love them into it. And so when you have that Mars opposing Uranus on November 11th, and you have the Sun opposing Uranus on the new moon of the 13th, I think that that's a real danger of major storms and earthquakes or bad nature forces, whether it's a volcano, but more likely earthquake and sudden storms that blow the house away. You know, I mean, unless we have new revelations that bring us all up to a higher level of consciousness, we're forced to go through these weird changes of like, instead of seeing angels, we're imagining technological weirdness from aliens that are monsters and reptilian type creatures. We have that kind of consciousness, and I feel that there's a need for a new voice, that there should be debates in the Democratic and the Republican side where all voices are heard, whether it's Marianne Williamson or Kennedy or whoever else. We need to have like a round table where everyone gets to say their thing, and then we slowly come to wisdom and some kind of loving grace to help awe, a truth that holds us all and a love that warms us all. As Rudolf Steiner says in his foundation stone, a warm, loving heart that moves into clear thinking and spiritual thinking and higher truth. So then we have Mars. So that's a really rough time, by the way, November 11th, 12th, 13th. That's going to be crazy, where people could grow a whole lot, but they could also get thrown out in sudden jolting turn of events that people don't really have a lot of choice on, you know. So when we get to Mars and Sun trine Neptune on the 17th of November, things smooth out a little bit for a more spiritual approach. And then there's like the Sun conjunct Mars on the 18th, where things are forced on us if we don't make right decisions. Maybe there's a hero that stands up that we can follow. Maybe somebody's giving us some good advice. Maybe Taylor Swift is going to start teaching meditation rather than football. I don't know. So the 23rd of November, Sun squares Saturn, and certainly by then Taylor Swift's relationships are over somewhere in November, if they're still happening, or new ones are over, or new ones are happening. Oh my God. Do we all have to suffer all this that we see? Can't we all be the spiritual hero that we need in our life? So when the moon conjuncts Jupiter on the 25th of November and Mars squares Saturn, I think we settle down to things that work and don't work, and we have a more realistic approach as we get into the full moon at 4 Gemini. On the 27th of November, Mercury squares Neptune, Sun Mars opposes Moon, and T squares with Saturn. I think that the full moon on the 26th, we're locking in that winter's coming, colder weather, and that we need to settle down to long-term friendships. And then when we go to December, you know, we have to be a little careful of the Venus square Pluto that we will experience on the 1st, 2nd, but especially into the 3rd of December. Jealousy and possessiveness and criticalness don't work. It's loving somebody for who we want them to be and not who they are. And so how do we like wear something new and something old? How do we have a turnover of like trying to kiss the frog into a prince or princess charming? Jealousy is loving somebody for who you want them to be rather than who they are, and comparing ourselves to others doesn't help. A deeper stillness and a deeper imagination for the holy divine, the Christos within each of us, and the wisdom of Buddha, the higher love. Venus trines Saturn, December 5th, and then the Mercury trine Jupiter, December 7th. That's a good time to get your Christmas shopping in. You'll buy things that you don't want to return, don't have to return. And it's good for like locking into good people in your life and social life and not being so critical and finding the thing that's good about a person. Even the bad guy that we think is bad has a persistence that we could learn from. We could learn from everybody. We want to learn everyone's higher self, and we want to not repeat their mistakes. Venus opposes Jupiter on the 9th, so the 8th and 9th are a time where we might overspend ourselves, but we might get a lot done. It's good to get the thing we love rather than the thing we don't love. The new moon on the 20th of Sag on December 12th at 6:32 p.m. is really going to push us into December. Mercury goes retrograde on the 13th, 2:09 a.m. So it is really important to get your shopping in that first week of December. Because when Mercury goes retrograde, a lot of times people bring things back. And Mercury's retrograde for a bit here, bringing us into like that Christmas time. So Mercury goes retrograde on the 13th, which is a return to love and old friends maybe, or communicating to people we haven't talked to for a long time. The new moon in Sagittarius is reaching out. That's on the 12th of December. And it's making long-term plans for the future and redeeming the past. But you got to be careful not getting stuck in the past and planning things in the future that are just escapes and ill-advised and maybe not as good as we would like to make them be. And the Sun square Neptune on the 16th, that 15th and 16th is totally buying into things that aren't real, that we're not going to really want in the future. Mercury trine Jupiter is good on the 18th. That's connecting to positive thoughts and workable thoughts and getting deals and getting insights. Venus opposing Uranus on winter solstice. Surprises that bring pleasure and unusual creativity. And on the 21st, 22nd, Sun, Mercury, a certain clarity comes in and practicality. And Venus trine Neptune on the 25th of Christmas is a higher spirit of Christmas comes in, a higher spirit of the angels and the birth of the new year. It really comes in good on the 20th to 25th. And the 26th is a full moon. So Christmas this year happens near the full moon time. So it's going to be like intense. So make it full of love and sharing. Sharing of your spiritual gifts, even more than your physical gifts. Mars square Neptune on the 28th. The 27th has a good vibe to it with Sun trine Jupiter and Mercury conjunct Mars. A lot can happen. But I would take it easy and not go running around on the 28th, because mistakes and accidents and weird weather and people being out of sorts. I don't know if they're out of sorts because they have been eating the wrong foods and indulging too much. The 29th gets kind of cool with more intimacies if you're not overcritical. New Year's Eve is the moon in Virgo, so you have to be careful of being critical and nothing's good enough. And then it brings us into the new year. And I think the new year, the new moon is at 20 Capricorn on January 11th. And Mars is trining Jupiter in the air. So that's going to be a really positive time, I think. I'm kind of looking forward to the spring is having a bunch of good aspects. And then January 19th, Mercury trine Jupiter, Venus square Neptune. I mean, that's a good time too, you know. Sun goes in Aquarius on the 20th. Pluto goes into Aquarius on the 20th. That's a really positive time. So by the 19th and 20th and 21st, the Sun conjunct Pluto and the Sun goes in Aquarius. I think that you really have to get rid of things that are negative in your life and not hang on to the past. Like Venus square Saturn on January 1st is a lot of people could have hangovers or be dissatisfied, and Mercury goes direct then, and there's some kind of new beginning has to take place and let go of the past, so that the Sun trine Uranus on the 9th of January and some of these other good aspects, the new moon on the 11th, it propels us into this more brilliant future where on the 19th of January, Mercury trine Jupiter. These are great aspects for a positive sense of Venus trines Jupiter on the 28th, Mars trine Uranus 29th. There's a lot of good aspects, I think, the full moon on the 25th of January. So the only crazy thing, I think, is when the Sun enters Aquarius on the 20th of January and it's conjunct Pluto. I think that's like, the plutocrats that rule by money, power, and authority, and greed and selfishness, and this idea of like people are bad, so we have to control them or bomb them or kill them or, economically enslave them. I think we need to get to this place where we spend a lot of money instead of on military weapons. We need to spend more money on educating the bottom up and teaching people to love the land and garden their backyard and grow plants and trees for oxygen. And we need to slow down instead of making faster jets and pumping people all over the planet and to Moon and Mars. We need to maybe slow up for a year and take a break, so that we can heal and have infrastructure of healthier environment. And this is a problem. Clean air and water, this is something we need to look to. And the age of Aquarius is what's good for everybody. And how can we find an identity and a sense of self and friendship that's attuned and in harmony in a loving relationship, loving kindness relationship with all the planet, with every other? How can we find that hidden life and light and love and the sense of pride that comes from being co-creative with a future life that belongs to all of us, and each of us is blessed individually by that greater sense of wholeness? How do we find that? And I'll be talking about that soon, because I soon will have a talk on the whole year. And please feel free to send me $20 or $50 for an advanced, I'll send you the talk on 2024 and beyond. That's coming up. But that will be coming up soon. But here I want to give you a glimpse of October, November, December, and into January, and what's up for people. It's really important to know the weather. Astrology, we can change the bad aspects into positive. But astrology's like the weather. If it's going to rain and storm, you don't want to go swimming. And if it's going to snow, definitely don't want to go swimming, So we have like the North Node near Mars and the Sun near there. So people are like letting go. They're talking too much, thinking too much. And we need to find a balance where we are in a more co-creative, co-equal way with people. And the United States is researching its soul to find the true religion of the warmth of loving kindness and a joy that passes our understanding, So may all beings find happiness starting with us. And this is Robert of Mayflower Bookshop, mayflowerbookshop.com. Please consider donating to help support the expense of time and computers and all this stuff. It would help me. And then the 2024 calendars and astrological booklets are in. Come in and get one and remind me that I offered you a discount. And that'd be it. Bless your hearts. This is Robert of Mayflower Bookshop, blessing your heart and wishing that peace would come quick and that our silence will awaken a vaster wisdom and a fearlessness to love all God's creatures and each other in a way that furthers us to healing and growth and enlightenment and happiness. Or I've talked way too much. Bless your heart. Bye.